I was scrolling through Reddit, and in the D&D section, there's a lot of people asking questions and telling stories, and there's some crazy stuff on there. So what Jake and I are going to do today is pull some stories off of Reddit. We're going to give some tips, some advice, tell some jokes, and we're going to hear some pretty crazy stories. So stay tuned. So this is going to be from the r/D&D Next, and we have Lovecraft Mojo asking the hard questions. They say, what class should I play in Curse of Strahd? I will be playing in the Curse of Strahd scenario. We currently have a paladin, cleric, rogue, ranger, and a wizard. For those familiar with the scenario, what class would you play if you were me?
Well, I mean, you kind of have all your roles covered there, so my advice to this is always just play whatever you want to play, because that's going to be most fun. But if you like to fill in the gaps, you know, like Rocky says, I got gaps, she got gaps, together we fill gaps. You're fine to pick anything in that scenario too. I think you're good.
Yeah, I mean, really, realistically, do whatever makes you happy. If you play a fighter, that would make me happy.
How about a bard? Bard sounds fun.
Yeah, bard would be a good option in that group.
Uh-huh.
Basically what we're saying is you can't go wrong.
Yeah. This one comes from r/RPG Horror Stories by Pomeroy K, probably. It's a good name. DM forces shift in my PC's alignment over something stupid. This experience is not a huge horror story compared to many others, but it was an example of how expectations regarding alignment can vary between players and DMs. I was in my first D&D long-lasting campaign, and I decided to play a lawful good paladin because I thought it would make for an interesting challenge because I considered it different from my actual personality. Okay. Though the players would occasionally give me issues because they wanted to do things like torture and interrogate prisoners, it didn't cause major problems overall. The issue of alignment came to a head dealing with a young green dragon that had made its lair in an abandoned tower. As a party, we quickly learned rule number 1 when fighting a dragon. Don't be clumped together in a group, because breath attacks are nasty. Half of us were looking pretty rough, and I think one character went down immediately from the breath attack. We quickly scattered, taking refuge where we could. Some players hid beneath or in trees. I had my character run towards the abandoned tower, seeking shelter. The DM suddenly stated that if I did this, he would have to change my alignment. This statement confused me, and I asked why that was. He stated that a lawful good paladin would not abandon their companions and act in their self-interest like that. I argued that we were all simply seeking cover, and as a paladin, I didn't have ranged attacks, so there wasn't anything for the character to do until the dragon landed, that it had nothing to do with courage or being good or not. It was the logical thing for my character to do. The DM insisted that the alignment change would happen if I continued with the action. It frustrated me, and it felt like a punishment for my character, but decided that that was what he would do. And it being my first D&D campaign, I didn't feel like I could argue the point. The DM made the notation once I committed to my course of action about the alignment shift. We did eventually defeat the dragon and move on in the campaign. There are a few other horror stories associated with this campaign that perhaps I'll get into at a later time, but this is the experience that taught me that some see alignment as prescriptive, while I view my character's alignment as descriptively covering the basic attitude of the character. It was because of this experience that I mostly ignored alignment when I began running games as a GM. Woo!
That's a lot. I feel like there's a couple things you got to point out there.
There is.
Right off the bat, coming in with, I wanted to play a good character because I'm not good in real life.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I mean, I'm kind of on the side of the original poster on here. Like, that's alignment changes are like, I very rarely hear that happening in 5e. You know, that's kind of an older edition thing when it really mattered. It doesn't necessarily matter too much in 5e, which I guess is one thing, right? It doesn't really matter. But it's just kind of obnoxious. Like, that feels icky to have a DM just kind of arbitrarily be like, oh, well, this isn't how I think you should play your character. You're playing your character wrong. So let me just make that change for you.
Yeah, that is icky. And I think this poster says it really well. It frustrated me, and it felt like a punishment for my character. And so that's a thing that I think you need to take note of. So on the DM side, this DM is making a mountain out of a molehill for sure. Especially if it's just like, well, what am I supposed to stand there and get attacked by the dragon, or like just tank another breath weapon? Like, I don't like. Okay, like
that's what heroes do, Jake.
Yeah, I guess fair enough. But even heroes have self-preservation reflexes and instincts. But also on the side of the player, unless you're like losing access to like a magic item or something, like some actual like tangible in-game consequence, I'd be like, okay, so you changed my alignment. Just keep playing the character lawful good how you see them, and the DM can label it, I guess, however they want to. I don't know. This is rough. This is definitely a mountain out of a molehill as far as I'm concerned, though.
Mm-hmm. I think that is what they did, just based on what they wrote. You know, like I've mostly ignored alignment and just continue through the campaign. We have videos on alignment. Whatever your opinions are on them, don't let something stupid like this make you ignore it as a whole. It is good as a descriptive baseline. This is definitely the dark side of alignment.
It's a tool, but this DM kind of seems like a tool too.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and our D&D next by Guilty Fee 3161. DMs, do you attack unconscious PCs? It's a poll here. I'm curious how common this is. If a PC falls to 0 HP, do your monsters or baddies usually continue to hit them? There's almost 10,000 votes. It's a pretty good sample size. It sounds like the last DM we just read about with alignment probably falls in that first category of 345, where they always attack unconscious PCs. But Josh, what do you think about this? Because it's an interesting topic, right? Like, it's kind of a gray area as a DM.
Yeah, I would say it is a little bit of a gray area, but I'm kind of happy with the results here. It seems like the overwhelming majority of people say that they only attack unconscious PCs with highly intelligent monsters or big bad evil guys. And then you also have like, I only attack unconscious PCs in gritty dark realism campaigns. That's kind of where it should be, you know. Otherwise you're kind of grieving your players, you know. You're spawn camping them, you're being that obnoxious, like, gosh, oh, you're down, like, you know. And like that, it makes it makes sense sometimes. But I am worried for those 345 people who always attack on, because that's not, you see 345 and you're like, all right, 345, that's 345 DMs. Even if like a third of them are running games, that's probably like an average. If 100 of them are running games and they're running games for 4-ish people, that's 400 people who have to have a DM that just wants to ruin their day.
Well, the D&D Reddit needs to continue to have its fuel, so they're just feeding the questions we get.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, I agree with you here. I think it should never be an always or never situation. It should be an intelligent thing. It should be, is there anything else the creature or monster can do? There's a lot of factors involved. Is it hungry? Yeah. Is it hungry hippos? You know, it's just, give me my food. But that could be a good reason. Or, you know, there are certain BBEGs or like philosophies. It's like you never just wound your enemy. And so maybe it's some kind of code. It all depends on the situation and the creature or monster involved, at least the way I see it.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is from the always reliable D&D Next. It's by NZ8DRZU6. I don't know if I was supposed to pronounce that or just say the letters, but I chose to say the letters. What to do when your party runs out of resources before the boss? DMing for a level 9 party, I designed the boss's lair to be dungeon crawl. I designed it with a medium-hard and medium if they do any planning, like scouting ahead, which they didn't. Through a combination of bad rolls, bad luck, entering more rooms than I expected, and suboptimal tactics, they are now depleted on resources. The cleric has a 2nd level and 2 1st level slots left, no channel divinities. The fighter and paladin are both at half HP with no hit dice. The bard has a 1st, 4th, and 1 bardic inspiration left on single-digit HP. DMs and players, do you think I should adjust the boss fight to make it easier? Because if I don't, it's most certainly going to be a TPK. Ideas I had, all of which feel like cheating if the players find out. Find a creative spell scrolls and healing potions right before the boss. Nerf the boss. Remove the lair action. NPC reinforcements arrive. But I'm also worried that if they die, it'll be my fault for making it too hard.
This is a really good question. I think it's something that a lot of DMs face and kind of get in this hazy area, right? Like we have videos on DM cheating and fudging dice rolls, ignoring HP. Some of the last videos in our How to Run Dragon of Icespire Peak, talking about Icespire Hold, I specifically go into using Icespire Hold as a way to perhaps funnel a few extra resources the player's way that you feel like they might need. I think the interesting thing about that is like the first option there, find a creative spell scrolls and healing potions right before the boss. I think it's kind of like how they find it, which is what matters more than necessarily like, oh, I just kind of created it, here it is. You know, like if they find a supply room, then yeah, you can give a little extra stuff. I wouldn't like funnel them all the way back up to maximum, but maybe something to give them a fighting chance. I don't tend to like nerfing the boss all that much. Removing the lair actions feels like maybe if you were going to nerf the fight a little bit, that might be where I would go. And Josh, I mean, what do you think about this? I mean, the players continue on in this situation. That's their choice. I mean, maybe there's more to this situation than we realize, but that's player agency. That's like, I'm basically on death's door, but I'm still going to fight. Okay, you earned a TPK.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. I mean, one, if this dungeon is a lair, then it's a living, breathing place, and there should be resources there. So I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to find some potions and whatever else. Probably shouldn't be like one box of like a loot crate just filled with all
There it is.
things. Yeah, but I don't think it's crazy to add that kind of room. But two, exactly what you were just saying. There's nothing wrong with stepping outside of the game and just letting your players know, hey, you guys are in pretty rough shape. You haven't finished this battle yet. I don't know what kind of information they know. They may or may not know that there's a boss in one of these rooms. They might think that they're just clearing out a dungeon. But unless they're trapped in there, which they're probably not if there's NPC reinforcements as a potential option.
Yeah, that was an odd option to throw in there.
And unless they're trapped in there, just let them know, hey, this is going to be pretty rough. Obviously, you're in rough shape. You always have the option to leave and come back. And that also creates some interesting roleplay and story opportunities, because now they've gone through, they've killed a lot of the boss's minions. He's still going to be in his lair when they come back to finish the job. I don't think you necessarily have to nerf it unless they're trapped in there. And if they're trapped in there, maybe just give them a way out. But it's interesting predicament. They did put themselves there. And as long as you're clearly communicating the dangers, it's kind of on them what happens next. It's not your responsibility if they TPK.
I like that the poll does show that I'm a DM, keep it as high chance of TPK, because it does honor the player's choices. And I think that is really what separates tabletop role-playing games from video games and things like that. It's not like Skyrim where the boss is going to be exactly like a compressor on audio. It just keeps it in that one spot the whole time. It is what it is, and they keep going forward. It's on them.
It is kind of interesting because the highest player option is keep it as is, and the highest DM option is keep it as is. So that's cool to see, because Tabletop RPG Twitter will tell you the opposite of this. And they get pretty mad when you mention the possibility of killing characters. They're like, "Oh, that's the only consequence that you know of." Come on.
Yeah, I'm actually proud of this. The community answering in this poll too.
So I do think this is a fun question, and I am kind of interested. What would you do if your players were in this situation? And if you're not a DM, if you're a player, what would you want your DM to do? If you could let us know that in the comments. And we have a lot of videos that are kind of relevant to these topics, but there's one on DM cheating that I think would be fun. So you can click on that somewhere over here if you want to learn more. And if you want us to do this again, then let us know in the comments, because we had fun doing it.